The views and opinions expressed in the following paid pre-recorded program are those of the host, callers, and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the station, its management, or its owners.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here are Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall. He is the Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello again, Jeff.
Hello. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you too. We are post-tax season, but
Yes.
As we talk about in this show all the time, it's always a good time to think about your taxes.
It is always a good time to worry about them. Think about them, worry about them, however you want to look at it.
Right. And my wife would worry about them. I would
Exactly.
just, taxes. And my wife would be like, taxes. But we pay them
Yes.
in April. And we file our taxes. We do all that stuff in April. But full disclosure, we at the Big 550 just got a paycheck yesterday.
Woohoo. You brought
Right?
lunch.
Never as big as I wanted it to be, but that's a different conversation. But taxes were taken out of my
Yes.
check.
Always.
And, I looked at it, and how many times, this is for the listeners, how many times do you get your paycheck stub? We do direct deposit,
Yeah.
so it just goes in there. But the stub comes into our mailbox here, and I open it up, and I go down the line, and I say, well, how much did I make?
Yeah.
And how much did I clear?
Exactly.
And it's always,
How much did you keep?
how much did I keep? Exactly. Keep What's Yours. That's the name of the show. That's why we call it that. But how much did I pay in taxes? And as I'm going down, I see the top line and the bottom line. And I'm like, well, that's crazy.
They're big difference.
But then when I get into it, well, I'm doing 7% with a Roth, and I'm
Yeah.
doing 7% with traditional IRA,
Yes.
pre-tax. And then, it's my Social Security tax, which you say the more you put in, the more you get to take out. Theoretically.
Yes.
So if I'm not putting any Social Security in, then, when I turn 65, I'm not going to get anything out of it.
Exactly. And everybody's like, oh, it's not going to be here. I mean, that's questionable. It does need revamping. And again, everybody's thought that the next administration was going to get in there and fix it and go, hey, because you pay 6.2% of everything you make that goes into Social Security, and 1.45% of that goes to Medicare.
Which is something I want.
Exactly.
Later in life
at
as well.
65, you get Medicare. The 145 helps fund that system. You still pay a monthly premium for it when you get out there, but again, the 145 actually helps it for its funding. But again, and in the past, there's been weird stuff like they'll come along and they'll say, so again, that 6.2 and the 145 is then matched dollar for dollar by your employer. So
Yes,
say,
which
thank
they
you,
don't,
Mr. Dorsey.
They don't show that.
They don't
on my paycheck stub.
They don't have to.
Yeah.
But when the company does, or whoever company does their weekly or monthly or quarterly filing, they pay that into the system for you. So they hold it and then they pay it in. But again, what takes place is in the past they've had to help businesses. They've come along and say, hey, that 6.2 that you're paying to Social Security, we're going to chop that down to 4%. And what they're doing is giving a little bit of a break to the employer to kind of help out through tough times. And that's happened a couple of times, but they've never come along and said, hey, everybody's paying 6.2% into Social Security. Maybe we need to raise that to 7%. And I mean, the mathematics on that will be billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So that fixes Social Security, but that's a whole nother debate.
Then my paycheck is 0.8% even
Exactly.
lower. But again, if it's there for me when I turn 65, then I'm okay with that.
Well,
so.
and again, the proponents of that would say, hey, the mathematics on it, if you're going to take 6.2 from me today, It goes into this account that we can't ever see or touch. And there's a whole lot of IOUs tossed in that account.
Yeah.
But if you were able to go invest it yourself over a period of time, you'd probably make, I mean, I don't know what the
Am I
numbers are.
getting a
but
better rate of return
way better
with the
is what they're
government?
saying.
Or
No.
could I get a better return me on the open market?
What they're saying, if you were smart investing, you would get a better rate of return. I've read a couple of these research reports. But again, that says that everybody is diligent enough to invest it correctly. Don't go crazy with the money, stuff like that. So you could look at both sides of the coin on that.
Sure. And I am doing stuff privately, and
Well,
it's
sure.
getting taken out of my paycheck. And then there's that line about federal income tax, and that's the one that I grr at.
Yes.
But again, there's nothing I can really do about that.
No. I mean, you're going to pay some tax. You can't go to, there's some stuff out there you see on the internet, Instagram to be exact, that says, oh, the zero tax. If you pay zero tax, you literally are not paying anything into Social Security, nor are you paying anything into Medicare. The issue is when you get ready to retire, you better be very diligent saver, because the problem is your Social Security benefit's going to be $400 a month because you never paid any tax. So a little tax is okay. Excessive taxes is a whole nother story.
Yeah, and the whole point of this show, Keep What's Yours, is to address your situation, find out what your actual tax burden is,
Yeah.
and see if there's any tax laws out there or tax tricks that Jeff can help you out with
Exactly.
to lower that amount.
Yes.
Legally
Legally, yeah.
speaking. There's ways to probably do it illegally, but Jeff's not going to help you out with that.
Seen a lot of them.
Yeah, and the IRS is going to probably catch up with you, especially now that they're hiring more agents to go out and look for you. But my question was, we pay taxes in April, but the tax story of my life is ongoing.
Every day.
Every day,
Yes.
every 2 weeks when I get a paycheck, and what I can do to you is we'll do this right here on the air. Man, inflation is tough. You
Yes.
should see my grocery bill from the wife sends me to the grocery store last week.
I was banished from doing that because I don't buy the right stuff.
Well, and I was like, you know what? I haven't done this on my own for a while. We always go together, or we use her list or whatever. I'm just gonna, throw caution to the wind. I'm gonna buy the fun cookies. I'm gonna buy
Double stuffs.
the
Yeah.
nice, balsamic vinegar. I'm gonna buy the good stuff, and I get to the checkout, and they hand me my receipt, and I'm like, oh, I gotta stop.
Gotta
something's
quit
gotta
doing
happen. Something's gotta give. So inflation being what it is, gas prices going up. I'm looking at my paycheck, and I'm like, you know what? I'm socking 14% away. Right off the bat, every paycheck. Maybe I need to bump that down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need to pull that back, because at the end of the day, Jeff, we say it all the time, I gotta live and pay my bills
You have to
first
pay your
and foremost.
bills. Exactly. So again, you'd run that too right up to that point. But where we're sitting today with inflation, the problem is the Fed says it's under control. It is to a degree, but it isn't strictly from the standpoint of groceries and fuel.
Yeah.
I mean, food and oil is X from the CPI number.
They're not going. The prices aren't going up anymore. Well, they might be, but they certainly aren't going back down.
They're not going back down
to where they were.
They're holding their own, and in some cases it's ticking up just a little bit. But the effects, if you took that effect, I think I heard a report said it's like from 2020 to today, and I'm not sure whose report it was. They're saying that it cost $12,000 more or $1,000 a month to live versus what it did in 2019. Which is probably
That's insane.
true. Yeah, because inflation, remember, inflation is year-over-year change. That's all they're showing you. But what about 2 years, 3 years?
So it was
4
9%
years?
last year, 9% this year. That's 18%
Exactly.
total.
Exactly.
And
So and they say
that's
it's
easy math. There's
yeah.
probably harder math that actually goes into it.
There's a lot more, but they're trying to, I say, dumb it down for us on a daily basis. But it's running at 3.5% as we sit today. That's what they say inflation is. But if you took that and said, okay, that's year-over-year change, but what about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and you start adding those numbers up, it's a chunk of change.
And the grocery stores, being what they are, they're outside of kind of that whole scope of because they do Inflation minus groceries and gas,
Yes.
which is the only thing that we actually buy
Every day.
is groceries and gas. And, you see people's receipts that hey, this is what I bought. This is my receipt from 2019.
Yeah.
I went and bought the exact same stuff. Everything has doubled.
And it's probably doubled, honestly.
So-
and again, even if you try to buy off brands, if you all that kind of stuff, to be smart about it, at the end of the day, it still costs more. And we see that from clients that are calling us saying, hey, I'm on a fixed income. I need, $500 more a month. And it's not because they're overspending. They're very, I'll say, diligent in their spending habits. Everything costs that much more, so they need $500 more a month. So,
and I'll just tell you this anecdotally: did you know that Hydrox cookies actually came out before Oreos?
did they really?
And Oreos are the
Oreos
knockoffs.
smoked it, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, now Hydrox went out of business. I think someone else brought them back, and they're on grocery store shelves in certain country or certain cities. But they're even more expensive than Oreos now.
Seriously.
So,
I never paid attention to that.
Yeah, the Hydrox cookie came out before the Oreos. I don't. If I was Hydrox, I would have sued Oreo. It's the exact same thing.
Exactly, no difference.
But it's just, even when you start looking at the knockoff brands or the store brands,
Yeah.
it's still expensive.
It's still expensive.
Still expensive.
Everything.
So the question for Jeff, and if you work with Jeff, you can give Jeff a call at Capital Advisory Group, 636-394-5524. How can I make an adjustment to my paycheck
Yes.
without actually, because the motto goes, pay yourself first.
Yes.
Have the money taken out for your retirement and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never miss it.
Exactly.
But if times are getting tough, Jeff, what can I do?
You may have to reel it back just a touch. I don't suggest that. I'd try everything but that. But again, at the end,
how can I reel it back without being irresponsible?
exactly
about it?
Like I explained, every year you should go into it and raise it. Don't go crazy, but raise it by 1%, and consistently do that. Every January, you fill the paperwork out and say, hey, raise my contribution by 1%. So maybe that's what you have to do, is back out of it by 1% if it's getting tight.
Yep.
And again, the flip of that is read your W-2 or your paycheck stub when you get it. Make sure that they're taking out state and federal tax.
Right.
We've seen it which is a weird anomaly, and we really can't explain it. People just look at us like we're nuts. Where somebody, they got a refund last year, and I say last year as 2022. 2023, their income was the same, but their tax withholding on their paycheck went down. And they didn't mess with 401ks. They didn't do any adjustments. It's just a calculation that was taking place. And they end up owing $1,000 in tax. And they're like, I've never paid $1,000 in tax. You are now.
Yeah.
So look at your paycheck stub and just do a quick comparison where you are this year, where you were last year, if you still have that data. And that's all you're looking for.
Because the last thing you want to do is, accounting errors happen.
Exactly.
Maybe your company, there was a glitch and you were fine last year, but now your withholdings are much, much less, which means at the end of the year you're going to owe that much more. And that's all fine and dandy. But if I go throughout my year thinking everything's the same and then I get a surprise $1,000 bill,
You're like, wait a minute.
every paycheck I maybe had $4 or $5 more.
Exactly.
But that didn't alter my life. But having a $1,000 bill at the end of the year, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, it does.
So, that's kind of the thing that you want to do with your paycheck stubs. And just looking at mine from yesterday, I had to ask Jeff. There is stuff in the news. Unemployment reports are low.
Yes. So,
That's good, right?
Well, they were low. We were at 3.4%, I believe, on unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
We're now 3.9%.
Okay.
So what took place was they were expecting 240,000 jobs, and only 175,000 showed up in April. So they're off just a wee bit. And so, again, everybody, if you read some of the economists, are like, oh, this is what will cause rates to come down this summer. Not so sure. It could be an anomaly. And again, you need to see next month's unemployment report come out, and if it drops, if it's lower again, it's going to spike unemployment.
But it's still Historically,
It's I think it's like a 40-year low.
a record.
Yes.
Still low.
Super low. Now the question is who do they count in that calculation?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who couldn't ever find the job. I shouldn't say that. Couldn't find the job that they wanted in their same career path. They didn't want to, go work at Walmart or get a job at McDonald's, so they just bowed out of the system. And so they're not counted anymore. So again, you go, how many are those? Are a lot of people went on disability? I think at the tail end it was either the tail end of Obama or the first part of Trump. They said that the disability rousters skyrocketed by like 20 or 25%. So that were people that were unemployed that got the extended unemployment that still couldn't find a job that said, hey, I'm disabled now, and they went a different direction. So a lot of those people aren't on
So now
there.
they're off the rolls.
They're off the rolls.
Yeah.
Are people that created their own little small businesses, and they will not be counted on it anymore because they took their unemployment and then stepped over and they created their own companies. So they're not recorded anymore because if you're your own small business, you can't claim unemployment on yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, half of America would be like, I'm unemployed.
Yeah, it sounds pretty sweet, actually. So that's kind of going on right now. Will it affect rates? We'll have to see later this
We'll
summer.
have to see. Again,
A lot of people are saying no.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying right now it has no bearing on it. What they're waiting for is we are actually waiting for April's CPI numbers to come out, which I believe come out middle of next week. And if they tick upwards for the month of April, that'd be 4 months consecutively that the inflation keeps going up.
Yep.
So, and under that concept, and again, I'm not an economist, but from what I'm reading, I think J.P. Morgan said there was a remote chance that they will raise rates sometime this year to slow inflation down. Raise rates, which is the exact opposite of what everybody is expecting.
Yeah.
And, what's it do to the markets if they do that? That's to be seen. But it could come out of left field where the Fed goes, hey, we're going to raise rates a quarter.
And you have said classically, though, that in an election year,
they should not do anything.
They shouldn't do anything.
And again, because it either helps current administration or it hurts them.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to be, the Federal Reserve is a separate entity. They report to no one in the U.S. government.
We don't want to look like we're playing politics.
Exactly. And that's why last year, 2023, around October-ish, November-ish, the Fed came out and said, hey, there's a good probability we will decrease interest rates sometime in 24. And everybody was like up in arms, they can't do that. That's politics, blah, blah. But to the Fed's defense, what they said is we wanted to pre-announce it just in case we did that in 24. It didn't look like it was pure politics.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But these days anymore, everything someone's going to say that's politics.
It gets twisted into it.
Yep.
And again, but the Fed typically never plays their hand as to where they're going. Because there's probably billions, if not trillions of dollars on the line. Again, the joke is it's not what the Fed does, it's what they say. So it's after the fact, whatever they announce, whether they stay pat, they raise, they lower. It's what I'll say the next afternoon is the dissertation on what they say. And if you read some of that stuff, it is dry and boring as can be. But what people will do is pluck out one sentence as to, hey, this is what the Fed's going to do going forward.
And that'll send the markets running.
Yeah.
So that is going on. I want to mention on the show today, what do you do when you get a letter from the IRS? Or what do you do if you get a letter from who you think is the IRS? A lot of scams out there. Plus, it's Small Business Month. That's May. May is Small Business Month. So if you have a business and you owe tax on that business, we're going to tell you why you should keep all your records forever and ever. Because they can come back for years. And even as a personal, I want to keep my tax records for a while. But
5 years is cool.
I don't need my tax records from when I was 22, most likely.
No.
But when you're a business, 22 years ago?
Yes.
Yep.
You want to keep them.
Yes, you need to keep
in
those.
a box, in a basement, storage somewhere.
So we'll talk about that as well. But just really quickly, as we're still in the news portion of the show, tax law 2025. Now, we did mention that there is a presidential election this year. President Biden is running for re-election. Former President Trump is running for, I guess, re-election.
Re-election too, I guess.
I guess. So what's going to happen? Whoever wins this election has to decide what the new tax law is going to be. Because
Yes.
when Trump was in office, Trump tax cuts, they all sunset in 2025.
Yes.
So somebody has to do something, whether it's, well, let's continue on with these. Well,
It's
sign
something.
the bill
Yep.
and get it going. Or whether we're going to scrap that whole thing and here's our tax plan. Something has to happen. Jeff, what's the latest on what both sides are
Exactly.
saying?
So on the, I'll say the Republican side, the GOP has actually created tax teams, okay, for the summer agenda to figure out what they're going to do in 2025.
So we don't know.
Don't know yet. They
But-
haven't played their hand.
They're assembling the team to figure it out.
There's 10 groups that are being put together that are going to go to these think tanks and start saying, hey, if we move this, where do we get our money from?
Yeah.
That are be able to put this together and start to work through the
Would
summer.
that kill us or would that save us?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, some of that statistics are, I don't want to say they're cooked, but they're guessing to a small degree or projecting off into the future, which a projection's worth just that.
When it comes to tax time, I think I would rather than get the rosiest outlook ever.
I'd like to see the worst case scenario
Please.
from both sides and then
Yes.
go, all right,
Yeah.
I know what it's going to cost me. But again, this is very complex, putting stuff together. The funny part, and this show is not politics by no means, but the funniest part is people, if you understand taxes, you'll see where I'm going with this. President Biden, I guess 2 weeks ago was doing a PR thing. And he vowed that he would not continue Trump's tax laws, and he would make sure in 2025 they were revamped and done away with. Okay. Now, on the flip side of that is the mantra coming out of the White House is if you make less than $400,000, you will never pay any more taxes. No new taxes. Everything's going to stay the same. And the funny part is in a press conference, maybe a couple days ago, there was a gentleman. One of the reporters raised his hands and said, hey, wait a minute, that contradicts itself. And the reason being is if Trump's tax laws are sunsetted, are done away with, we revert back to 2019 tax law. Well, part of Trump's tax cuts to start with was he increased the tax brackets, added a bracket, and increased the income threshold just by a little bit, but enough to kind of give you that perk. So if the Democrats do not continue on with the tax cuts, they kill it, we go back to 2019 tax law, the tax brackets compress, and by default, I think they said that we'll all pay like 3 or 4% more in tax just because the tax brackets themselves compressed.
Yeah.
So this reporter was calling them out on that, and it was kind of funny because they realized they were in a catch-22.
Yeah. So it's like repeal and replace.
Yes.
If they were doing that for
and
the
they had
affordable health care.
Nothing when it came
And
to it.
they had no replace. So if they just repeal the tax cuts, the Trump 25, and don't replace them with a new plan that protects that
Yes.
under 400,000, then by default we will pay more taxes.
Yes.
And just because the
So-
tax brackets shrink back down
Yeah.
again.
But it was funny because the press secretary was like, "Oh," and she just went on to somebody else.
Right. Well, good for that reporter. I
To
mean,
kinda-
this is minutia of the tax law.
Exactly.
But he was on top of
He
it.
was very much on top of it. So again, but the White House hasn't explained, hey, this is what we're going to do. You hear both parties, you hear this mantra stuff comes out, good PR. We're going to do away with step-up and basis, which means if you have a house and you pass away, you could leave it to your heir on a step-up and basis, fair market value the day you pass away. Nobody pays tax on it. That's one of the big things that say they're going to do away with it. The flip is backdoor Ross. So if you make too much money, if you make more than about $220, married filing jointly, you can't do a Roth contribution because you make too much. But you can do a backdoor Roth, which is a non-deductible IRA contribution, and then that non-deductible IRA contribution gets converted to a Roth a couple days later.
Mm-hmm.
It's not taxable. It's an easy way to do it. They keep saying, oh, that's only for the rich, we're going to take that away, but yet they've never taken that away.
Yeah.
So there's just a couple that are both sides will use as PR going forward.
Boy, it sounds like you're describing every politician that's ever lived.
Yes.
They say one thing and then
Exactly.
they
Take
do
it
another.
with a grain of salt. And again,
Sure.
I think when they zero this tax plan in, both sides, there's a lot of mathematical calcs that go into play. So we'll see if we get closer, if they start to announce more stuff. I think, hey, this is what we want to do. But I don't think either party really knows what to do just yet, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
but the current tax law sunsets in 2025, so something will have to be done. It just
And it may be-
it is the fact.
Yeah, and not to be slow. The debt of the United States is a tremendous amount of money, crazy amount of money. Not to be naive, but I think either side's going to have to raise taxes somewhere. The question is who gets taxed
On who
and how do they do it?
Yeah.
And again, they may have a plan. They're just not going to release it because people on both sides won't like it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we do have a plan, but you're not going to like it.
Yeah,
so
so we wait
we'll
till
tell
the-
you on November 7th
Yeah.
or whenever.
11th hour, and they'll be like, yeah, everybody's going to pay a little bit more tax. And
Yeah.
There's no way out of it.
Well, that'll be interesting. Watch this space. If they release any sort of information on either side's tax plans, we'll bring it to you. Let's go to commercial break. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall, Capital Advisory Group, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. 636-394-5524. If you want Jeff to look at your paycheck stub and look at your taxes from the past couple of years and tell you, hey, you're doing good, or you could do better over here, or you're hemorrhaging money over
Yes.
here. The idea is to keep more of your money, and rather than pay taxes on it, keep it in either your savings account, your banking account, or your retirement account. Keep more of your money. Jeff can help you with that. 636-394-5524. CapitalAdvisoryGRP.com.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the show, back on Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. Now, Jeff, when you get a letter from the IRS, what should we immediately do? Should I panic? Should I be skeptical that this is a scam? I mean, they're not going to... do they send you a letter? Do they call you? What happens when the IRS has to reach out to you?
So IRS needs to reach out to you. They're going to do it in two ways. They're going to mail it, regular U.S. Postal Service, regular mail, shows up in your mailbox one day. Not a big deal. If they really, really, really want your attention, they're going to send it certified mail, which means you're going to have to sign for it, or if you're not home, you're going to have to go to the post office and pick it up.
Oh.
And then people freak out. But when you get these pieces of mail, do not panic. Okay, most people see IRS on the envelope and they automatically go into convulsions and get on the phone and start, crying and screaming at us. Read what the letter says. And I say that with common sense. But again, read what it says, because there's letters out there today that are asking just to verify your identity. And if it's a 15-page letter that shows up, but basically the first paragraph, it says, call this 800 number, have your tax return ready. We're going to recite numbers to you, and you go back and forth to prove your identity. Once you do that, they release your refund to you. You're good to go.
Oh, okay.
So it's just the IRS checking. There are scams out there where some of these letters are fake, but they're saying that most of them can be picked up. Letterhead, logo, there's something wrong with it from a printing, or it's a 2-page document. IRS, when they send it, in the very back of it will give you your taxpayer rights. It's a 7-page
Oh, my goodness.
double side telling you what you can and can't do and what to worry about and all that good stuff. So again, if you get a letter, do not panic. Some of them, there's a couple different letters. One is the identity, questioning, hey, call this number and validate, who you say you are. And it's a game, because it's not where you're just going to call them and go, hey, my social security number is this. They're going to
Right.
they're going to play that back and forth with you.
Right.
Once they know who you are, then they're going to play this game with you to make sure that you can answer the right questions. The other one, sometimes you get a proposed change to your tax return. That doesn't mean you got to write a check for that number. It's saying, hey, we got some other information, may or may not be right. we're proposing that we're going to change it, but here's what your bill will be. And then there's actual bills to say, pay this and pay it now. Typically, those are certified. They are a levy, which means levy or seize property is what they say. They are very aggressive letters. They will scare you.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you get any of those letters, don't just throw it in a pile and go, ooh, I'm going to ignore it, and it'll go away. It doesn't go away. It gets
Right.
worse.
Read them, and
Read 'em.
depending on what they say,
Yes.
do something about them. Don't
Call
just
us.
bury your head in the sand.
We can help decipher what in the world it's saying. They may say you owe a little interest. I mean, there's all kinds of variations in these. But the levy letters literally panic people. And what a levy means just arbitrarily one day they just zap money out of your bank account.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know it's coming until the money's gone.
Right.
And you could owe the IRS $1,000, and you could have $5,000 in your account. They're going to take the balance. They'll give you back the refund later, but they're going to take the full amount. So don't be panic stricken, because usually the levy letters are to get your attention. And then the seized property, that's if you owe them a ton of money and you just refuse to talk with them. I mean, they do have I'll say an asset seizure side of the IRS.
It's just like the IRS repossessing.
Yeah, they'll go pull
your
houses,
motorcycle.
motorcycles, cars, boats, planes. Usually you only see that like in drug deals, where they can say, hey, you
Yes.
are laundering money, and boom, they go and they seize it for failure to pay. But, I mean, they do that if you blow them off for an extended period of time.
So give Jeff a call, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor, 636-394-5524, and who will be your first step into figuring out what's the next step.
Because a proposed change may say, hey, we think you should, like you might get a 1099, and it would be other income. And it's a settlement from something. But the IRS sees that, and they go like, no, that's self-employment income. You owe self-employment tax on it, and you're going to pay us more tax. End of the day, you're right, because it's not. It's a settlement.
Mm-hmm.
So there's weird stuff like that happens.
And if the letters happen to say, in lieu of payment, send us, $500 in Macy's gift cards, that's a scam.
Don't worry about that.
And the IRS doesn't want.
Haven't seen any of those lately.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're not out there, but haven't seen. I think it was about 2 years ago. There was and it really wasn't in the Midwest. It was more West Coast, I think, is what they were saying. And there was a rampant. They just were blanketing neighborhoods with these letters, so everybody got a tax notice. But it did say, hey, give us a gift card and we'll call it even. They're not going to ask for a gift card.
Yeah.
So again, IRS will only communicate with you by regular mail or by certified letter. They're not going to call you and go, hey, we're the IRS. You owe us $300. Could you pay it today? They're not going to do that unless you've started a conversation with the IRS. Then yes, that's an ongoing communication. But if you've never physically wrote them a letter, or you have not started any communication and they call you out of the blue, it's not the IRS. It really isn't.
All right, so if you get a letter from the IRS or who you think might be the IRS, maybe your first call is to Jeff, 636-394-5524. Jeff Sufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Just like if you can't pay your taxes, don't bury your head in the sand. You need to set up something with the IRS, because just forgetting about it or ignoring it makes it wholly worse.
And also with today's interest rates that they're
it's
charging
like 8% now.
Yes, it's huge.
Oh.
So any dollars
It's almost as bad as my credit card.
It's worse.
So give Jeff a call, 636-394-5524. Don't ignore it. Deal with it. And you know what? Maybe it's not as big a deal.
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's identity. And we, even if we do your tax return, we can't call the IRS. We do everything else we can, but for the identity, we can't do that.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk to us.
They want to talk to you.
They want to talk to the individual taxpayer and just validate it, because they got to check their little boxes, and it's all good.
But if you do go and see Jeff about a very specific tax issue, what you can say is, well, look, why did I have this tax issue in the first place?
Exactly.
Jeff, help me figure this out so it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm in here, what else could I be doing
Exactly.
that could be tax beneficial to me? And that's how you keep more of what's yours. Name of the show, name of the book that Jeff wrote, Keep What's Yours, name of the lifestyle that we want you to live. Keep more of your money. 636-394-5524. When we come back, Small Business Month. What you can do as a small business when it comes to keeping all of your tax records that could probably save your butt.
It will.
If they come back to you in the future. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall on the Big 550 KTRS.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Now, Jeff, we have been saying May is Small Business Month, and last week we talked about the different kinds of businesses, LLCs, S-Corps, sole proprietor, partnership, all that stuff. But this week we're going to talk about if you are a small business and you owe tax on a business, you're going to want to keep those records forever.
It's not so much owing tax. It's a matter of if you had a tax that was due. Okay. So say in 2022, you had a $2,000 bill. You're a corporation or an LLC, or a partnership, and you actually had a tax bill. You want to keep receipt of that payment of that tax that you paid, whether it be a canceled check, whether it would be online, with the tracking code. And then you want to keep your tax documents and most definitely every piece of backup that goes how you came to those numbers.
Yeah.
Okay? The reason being is the IRS, right now we're seeing IRS come back and ask questions on 2019. And you go, what? It's 2024. Why are they going back 5 years? Problem is they're closed 20 and 21.
Yeah.
So they're touching the 2019 stuff that they have sitting on their desk. And they're going to catch back up to that and then come current eventually. So again, in 2019, I asked this question to all small businesses out there. What was your revenue? What was your expenses? And I don't even know that myself personally. I'd have to go pull a box out or a profit and loss.
But you have
But I got it.
the records.
Yes. And most of those records are digital. So if my house, my office gets blown away in a tornado, burns to the ground, whatever, I still could go find those records to prove, hey, this is what I paid, here's how I came up with these numbers, and that's where most people get in trouble.
And as a person or as a married filing jointly, the recommendation is how many years do we keep our taxes?
I mean, personally, 5 years, you're safe. IRS can go back 3 years and question anything 3 years. And if it's deemed fraud, it's unlimited. You're in trouble anyway. So,
Right.
But typically, we see people like we have the annual shred day right after tax season, and people show up and they go, "Hey, I got tax returns from 1972 coming forward," and I'm like, if you're a business, yeah, keep them.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds nuts, but keep them. If you're personal, you don't need that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want to go back and go, "Hey, I made $20,000 in 72, and I could buy a house and a car and have 3 kids."
It's fun going back and looking at that sometimes, but
Yeah.
not necessary.
Not necessary.
And
Taking up space.
Yeah. But if you're a business,
Keep it.
keep all of it.
Keep it. We've ran into issues in the past where the IRS came back and questioned maybe a 3-year-old tax withholding question. And when I mean tax withholding, either the 940s or 941s, quarterly wage reports. And the IRS came back and said, hey, something's not right here 3 years ago. They didn't like that number, and then they ended up going 4 years, 5 years, 6 years back.
Well, let's see what you were doing
And
even prior to this.
And the problem is the client can only go back 4 years, and they shredded everything. So there is a website, but it only goes back so far for the IRS that holds that data, but the actual proof was gone. So now they're in a battle with the IRS to prove, hey, we really did pay this, and how else would you prove it unless you had the documentation? So again, that's that a 1 in a million chance that they go after you, but if they do, it becomes a nightmare.
Yeah.
So if
wanna
you
have
keep that
protection.
yeah, you've backed yourself and you're good to go.
And this is the thing I say about small businesses all the time. You love flowers. You open up a flower shop because you're good at arrangements, but you're not great at your books.
Exactly.
You love ice cream, so you open up an ice cream shop.
Yep.
And you've got the best flavors in town. You're a chef. You're a baker. You can make the best cupcakes. You probably keep the worst records, you know? So when you open up a small business, yes, you have to be great at making cupcakes, but you also have to be good at doing books, and you also have to be a good librarian and records keeper and all that stuff.
Well, the funny part is for small businesses, QuickBooks has awesome commercials. They make it look like, hey, just click a couple buttons and you're good to go.
And my small business was up and running.
Up and running in no time flat.
Yeah.
But the records were all screwed up. So, so again, that's awesome that you have the initiative to go do that. But find somebody that can help you with that, because you do need a little. I mean, if you're doing 5,000, 10,000, it's a little home-based business. That's okay. You can do it on a spreadsheet. But you start getting bigger, and your records are, I say, incorrect. The problem is the bigger it gets, the bigger your problem gets. So literally find someone that can help you with QuickBooks that you're going to have to pay them to do it, but you pay them to keep your profit loss, your balance sheet, the whole shoot cash flow analysis, the whole shoot match is ready to go for you.
And I knew a guy that opened up a shop fixing classic cars. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what'd you do today? And he said, well, I did payroll, and I did this, and I did that, and I talked on the phone to the supplier and all that. And I said, when's the last time you actually got under the hood of a car? And they go, oh, my God, never.
Yeah, can't.
I don't even do that anymore. Now I'm just like, pushing papers around.
Yep.
That's the majority of the work you do. So going into opening a small business, keep that in mind.
Exactly. You'll end up being a paper pusher to a degree. So
What can you do for small businesses in that regard?
So we have a whole team that basically can do QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop. We use I laugh at an older software called EasyAct. Which is an accounting software, creates profit and loss, balance sheet. We have 6 accountants, 2 CPAs, and an EA that do that on a daily basis. Active payroll, and I say active payroll as, hey, you got payroll running today, we do it, run it, direct deposit. And then sometimes we have smaller companies where they write the checks, we back into it after the fact, tell them what their tax withholdings are. We can do your quarterly wage reports.
Yeah.
Your taxes,
all that
the
stuff.
whole shooting match from start to finish. So,
and if you are a flower shop and you're always busy and you're bringing in good money, but somehow it keeps going out again and you're not making any money, or if you're a small business and you say, I know I'm doing something right, but we still aren't making money, or we're not making as much as I think we should be.
Yes.
Have Jeff look at your stuff, because he could just do a quick eyeball audit and probably see, well, this is an area that we want to kind of look into. Why are you paying so much in shipping, or why are you paying so much in this, that, and the other? So Jeff's been there, and he's seen hundreds of small businesses come into his office. So he knows a thing or two about how this works. So if you need help with your small business, give Jeff a call. And frankly, if you have a whole wall of records in filing cabinets and they're made of paper, what happens if the building burns down?
Exactly.
You're going to want to scan all of those in as well.
So we have a digital vault that we use. So from tax purposes, from accounting purposes, taxes, everything is uploaded when it comes in the door. Our clients upload it for us and put it in that portal. That way all your documents are there. When we're said and done with a tax return, we actually print it to this vault. So as a client, if you ever go to do a loan, you've got a couple years worth of tax returns that are sitting on this vault for you, ready to go. You drag and drop for your mortgage broker. And then number 2, on the accounting side, everything is scanned. All the work papers is what we call them, are scanned and uploaded in there too. So if the building burns, I'm not going, oh, my server is destroyed now, I have no data. Everything is backed up.
So that's what Jeff can help you out with. And as a small business, we want you to be prepared to succeed, because the last thing you want to be worrying about is the paperwork and taxes from 10 years ago.
Exactly.
You need to be worried about your customers.
Exactly. Work on your customers, work on your day-to-day operations. So again, but the other side is, as a small business, what's your emergency preparation? I mean, what do you have? I mean, for us, we've already done this drill a couple of times that says, hey, if the office is blown away in a tornado one day, we literally can go back to my house and my basement, set up shop. All I need is internet access, and we're back in business. Now, yes, we'll lose a little bit of stuff, but the main data is everything's in the cloud.
Yep.
And you have to. So if you got a little small LLC, say, hey, I got these tax returns over there. I'm not going to worry about it. Scan them.
Yeah.
That's all I got to do.
Scan them, upload them to the cloud.
To the cloud, and then you have it anywhere you go. You could get access to it, and it's not an issue.
Because when I plan to retire to Hawaii when I'm 80, I'll be able to
83.
access all of those records.
If you ever need them, you can get your hands on them.
Yep.
Seriously, Dropbox, if it's small enough. If it's big enough, do something, some other version online.
And May is Small Business Month, and
Yes.
that is your small business tip
Yes.
for this week. Jeff, thank you so much. We are out of time, but it's always informative. It's always interesting. And as I say every week, as long as you pay taxes, which is everybody,
Yes.
this is the show for you. And to teach you, hey, maybe I didn't need to pay as many taxes
Exactly.
this year as I did last year. So keep what's yours. That's what we want you to do. We want you to keep more of your money because going on a vacation to Disney is a lot more important than
Yeah, it is.
whatever the federal government wants to do with your money. 636-394-5524, CapitalAdvisoryGRP.com. Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGRP.com. The views and opinions expressed in the preceding paid pre-recorded program are those of the host, callers, and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.